How stale is stale? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, and that's what we're going to explore today is how stale is stale coffee? We've heard a lot of stuff over the years about people talking about coffee being fresh and what is freshness, and you must buy fresh, and freshness is only this, and you can only wait a month or so before it's all totally gone. And then we see people talking about, oh, you know what, take your coffee, let it rest for like a month, and then it becomes really great. But how long can coffee last? We're going to explore a little bit of that today, so I hope you like it. What's going on? Good morning, Michael. How are you doing today? Good morning to everybody. If you have any questions about this, please drop in the comments. We're happy to talk about it and answer anything that I can. And so today what we have here is a very nice coffee that was gifted to me by Tim Wendelboe. So back in August of 2019, I was in Copenhagen, Denmark to oversee the roasting championship. And so I called up Tim. I was like, hey, Tim, man, are you in town? I want to come out and see you, because all the years that him and I've been friends, I've never got to visit his place and get out to Norway. So he was like, yeah, man, come Wednesday. So I booked a flight out of Copenhagen, flew up to Norway in the morning, hung out with Tim for a few hours, and then basically flew back to Copenhagen before flying to the United States and coming back home. And if you've never been to Tim Wendelboe's place, it's really a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. We're talking about really meticulous thinking about coffee. He's easily one of the best coffee shops in the world. Even though Tim's not working in the bar, his team is really solid. Like, it's really well thought out and definitely one of the must-visit places, I think, for coffee in the world today. But one thing about Tim is that unlike a lot of other barista championships, champions, Tim's really kept up with it. Like, he's really still in the field. Now, some of the other ones, of course, are still in the field. I can't say they're not, but he's really maintained a really high level of attention to detail, and he sources his own coffee. He's got a company called Nordic Approach I don't think he's the only owner of that, but Nordic Approach, he's part of it, where they source green coffee. And he's a little bit psycho. This is the one thing that I've noticed about the best coffee operators. They are a little bit psycho. There's something mentally wrong with them. And he's definitely one of those guys, because you know what? He's not just buying coffee. He's like, I'm going to build a farm, but I'm not building a farm. I'm going to go to this farm with a friend of his, a farmer producer that he's worked with for many years. And he bought some land from him, this very raw parcel of land. And he's basically building a cabin out there and doing testing and growing coffee. And he goes there by himself and works on the farm. So that's a little bit crazy. Like, that's a little bit like, I have the idea of like, oh, it'd be nice to go do that, but maybe I want to be more of a gentleman farmer one day, right? Like, make a lot of money and then go out and do it right and hire all these people to do it. But no, not Tim. Tim's out there hacking away at it like a madman. But anyway, so Tim, if you're familiar, he's really kind of the big proponent of the Nordic style of roasting, the really light roasts. Him and I, when we get together for cigars when we're traveling around the world, we'll sit down and at some point argue about the ridiculousness of light roasting and the stupidity of dark roasting. Well, medium roasting that I do, darker for him, right? So, but we're good friends. And so when I went to visit him, he was very generous. He spent some time, and then basically, he had to take off. And so he said, he told his staff, I didn't know this at the time, because I was going to buy what I was picking up. I bought a mug. I got a mug and a couple coffees. And he was like, it's on me, man. And I was like, I can't. So this is one of those coffees. This is Mom, good morning. This is the Fahem. Fahem is a coffee that is produced by Mohammed Lalo. And it is from Atnago, Atnago, Limmu Seka, Ethiopia. It's a wash process coffee that's using these two varietals of arabica, what's called 74110 and 74148. Now, if you're not familiar, there are a number of different arabica varietals that have been developed in labs, and they have, some kind of numerical or sometimes letter designations. You've probably heard of SL34, SL28. Those come from a company called Scott's Labs, and they were designed to be particular breeds of coffee, varietals of coffee that were cultivated for the certain conditions of the time. Like, for example, you probably heard of a varietal called Castillo. Castillo came out probably 15, 18 years ago, probably a little bit more. And that was because there was a lot of rust problems in Colombia. They needed something more hardy and with more production. So that's one thing. When you have a lot of these coffees that are being cultivated, they want to have quality. That's an important factor, but they also want to have durability and high production capacity because, especially companies or organizations like Juan Valdez, the what we call the Federación, what's it called? The Federación de Cafeteros de Colombia. Those are the organizations that are in charge of production overall across the country, and they want to get new varietals that are going to be hardy to withstand disease, as well as high production, so that basically they can increase the coffee output for the country and get better, better yields, better export numbers, and more money. So that's all a big part of these different varietals. Now, this is a wash process coffee that was from the December 2018 harvest. Remember, it is 2024. This was grown and harvested. This was grown in 2017. It was grown in 2018, harvested at the end of 2018. And then, as Tim gets it and he finally makes it to his roasters or for this bag by August 2019, right? This is, you can see here that the date 2808 2019. This means that it's roasted on August 28th, 2019, and it is batch number 9 for that day. And Michael says, definitely not non-GM. Definitely not. So where does this come from? This came from Tim, and I drank a bunch of it. Like, it's not full. This is a 250 gram bag, and you can see that it's not. There's a lot gone. There's a little bit here. I don't know how much is here. Well, actually, let's see how much is here. We'll take the scale. Now, I'm not sure what the bag weight is, but we're just gonna go for it. So 250 grams is how much supposed to be in there. So 71 grams out of a 250 gram bag. So let's say, I don't know, 30 pounds. Let's say 300 grams would have been the total weight with the bag and the label. So I've consumed most of it. I've not let it go to waste. But after I used all of this, basically, I just kind of tossed it on the side, down in the basement of Spro, and it just kind of sat there in relatively cool environments, probably 60 degrees, 65 degrees, no more than 75, 70, probably 70. And it just kind of sat there in its sealed bag the way it is right now. There's a little bit of air in here. They do have a valve on the back. I did not squeeze the valve. So and then when I pulled the bag out of the storage unit yesterday, I was like, let me put this in. I'm not going to open it, I'm not going to do anything. I want to have it preserved for this moment. So roasted and sold or given to me in 2019, August of 2019. This coffee is now for September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So what? 4 years, 3 years, 6 months, 3.5 months, 3.5 years old. Now, of course, most people will be like, oh my gosh, we'll never use that. We never use that coffee, throw it away. That's ridiculous. Why would I throw it away? I'm going to try it. We're going to try it, and we're going to see how this coffee performs 3.5 years later, and not even in like the ideal conditions of being frozen. Like, if you really want to keep your coffee like long term, you find a coffee you really like, and you're tasting it, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really what I love. Take that coffee, put it in the freezer. Just make sure that's nicely closed and wrapped. You don't have to do too much special. Just make sure it's as closed and tightly wrapped as possible. Put it in your freezer and let it sit there. And then when you need to use it, take a couple scoops out that you need to brew with it, and then keep it frozen. And you'll basically have coffee. That coffee will hold itself at your ideal flavor profile indefinitely. Like, it will almost never go off, right? Some people are like, oh, what about freezer burn? Freezer burn happens because of the moisture content getting frozen and messing up the cellular structure of the meat, right? That doesn't happen because there's only 2 to 3% of moisture inside roasted coffee. So you don't have to worry about any of that. None of that has to worry about. I mean, like, more people now in 2024 are accepting of this. Back in 2004, when we started doing this, people were very against it. Like, people were like, wanted to like burn me at the stake. Ida Batye was pissed off. She was like, why are you freezing my coffee? She couldn't say that to me because I wasn't going to listen. But the thing was that people were questioning me. Why are you doing that? How could you do that? You're not respecting the coffee. You're disrespecting the farmer. I'm like, look, hold on now. I am respecting the farmer because I'm holding it. And when people get to drink it, it's going to be at the peak of flavor. But now, this is not necessarily the peak of flavor. For all we know, this could be the worst of flavor possible. But here's some things that I'm hedging my bets on, right? And if you wanted to do this kind of thing, I would hedge your bet. Now, if you're buying, bulk coffee at Costco, you're buying the whatever Miscela de Oro from like your online retailer that's selling you, 2.2 pounds or 1 kilo bags for, $12. Those coffees are probably not the ideal candidate for this kind of thing. Those coffees are going to be a little bit darker roasted. They're going to have more oils coming out of them. They're not going to be probably the ideal candidate. However, if you get a nice coffee, and Tim always has nice coffee. Like if you go to his website right now, there's only 5 coffees. You go to most people's website, they got all kinds of coffees, all kinds of blends. Tim, only 5 at the moment. And this Fahem, if he bought some this past year, it's not even on there because you know why? It's the middle of March. This was bought back in August. So all of this, if he had it, was going to be in August, and it's all gone, right? Because he's that very seasonal kind of guy. Look, like I told you, he's a little bit crazy. But buy coffee from him. It's very good. And if you like light roasted coffee, really buy it from Wendelboe. Like I think he's crazy, but you know what? I think that he's the leader. When it comes to light roasted coffee, he's the example. You talk about all these guys in America talking about Nordic roast, forget that. Buy it from the Nordic guy, right? Like I don't want imitation Thor. I want real Thor. All right, let's move on. We're going to get into this. So what I think about this is that it's going to be high quality coffee to begin with. Well roasted, well presented in all respects. So I think for letting it sit around for years at a time without any special handling, this probably has the best chance of doing well. Now, what were the original notes when we looked at it, when we first got it? Tim says that it has notes of rhubarb, tropical fruits, and floral notes. So we're going to be looking for that rhubarb, tropical fruits, and floral note. Let's open up the bag and get a whiff to see if there's any kind of residual aromas. Okay, just got to clear the nostrils. Well, it definitely has more kind of chocolatey-ish, cacao-ish tones, maybe a little bit of like what I would describe as a roasty tone. Maybe not so enticing. Well, let's see. Let's get this plate here. I'm going to use this plate as our little device here. Let's pour out some coffee. Let's have a look. It's real small. So these varietals are really small. And as you can see, whoa, look at this. Like on your camera, what I'm seeing on the feed, it looks it's light, but it looks a little bit towards medium. It's really light in person. Like it's super light. Like this is like, you're like, did you go past the Arabic roast, Tim? But yeah, of course he did. This is the first crack kind of guy. Like he probably brings this right the first crack and then it's like, whoosh, we're done. But still, like we're not, it's 3.5 years old. We're not seeing any kind of oils coming out of it. It looks still kind of fairly Ethiopian. I don't recall what it smelled like, but maybe there's a little bit of hints of rhubarb. I don't smell rhubarb. Like I don't smell big sticks of rhubarb. So it does have like a earthy, so like a cacao earthiness to it. Maybe a little bit of a slight pungency that says maybe I'm a little bit old. Now let's try. Let's get going. We're going to go on. So we're going to get our scale. We're going to measure out our typical 24 grams because we're going to make, 12 ounces of coffee like we normally do here. $23, $24. Great. I will keep this. If you've noticed, this is a really nice plate. This is the saucer for another cup that was gifted to me by my friend in Saudi Arabia. And she owns a place called That Coffee. I did a video. I included this product in or one of the products in the gift guide for last year. And this by Stepanka. She's actually a ceramicist in New York City, and she makes beautiful, beautiful stuff. If you have the chance, Stepanka Ceramics, really, really nice stuff. And Michael's saying that I wonder if it has the same effect. Oh, you know what? That's a great like observation. That how that pour, some pour. Well, I haven't had a lot of pours, but the pour has that kind of like older, maybe that's what it is, older, musty pungency to it. There's a bit of that happening here. Maybe that's really what I'm like. That's a much better descriptive of what I'm smelling. All right, let's get to the grinding. So today we're going to use the Fellow Ode Mark II because I have it here, and we're going to let me clear out the coffee from yesterday. All right, so remember yesterday, we adjusted it like 3 positions. So we're going to go with that. We're going to try to see how that works. And then also we talked last week about how, what's his name? Lance Hedrick was doing this whole, like, I'm going to grind it slowly. I don't know if I've... That's pretty fast, but I don't know about that. That seems like some weird science going on there. All right, I forgot to use this yesterday. There is the top here. So yeah, there it is. Ground coffee. Looks nice and light. Tim Wendelboe light. If you love Wendelboe, you will have a nice and light coffee. All right, where's our brewer? We're going to do our brewing. We're going to use the origami again with the origami filters. I was looking online yesterday, planning the different links that I'm putting in the descriptions below, and it turns out you cannot get these origami filters on Amazon, at least. Maybe you can order them somewhere else, but these are the origami filters. They come from Japan. Number 2 size filters. As you can see, I get my stuff at Tokyo Hands. I love going there. Gosh, if you ever go to Tokyo, go to Tokyo Hands. They've got an incredible selection of coffee brewing stuff, and as well as all kinds of home goods. Like it's really scary. Like I go there and I lose control and spend like hundreds of dollars. Or I could easily spend thousands if I really let myself go. But I mean, they have everything. Like they've got brewing gear, they've got kitchen gear, they've got journaling stuff. If you want to buy saws, like really nice Japanese hand tools, it's like they have that too. It's like, gosh, everything is there. But these are filters that I haven't seen, and I'm glad I bought them because I was looking online to put a link to them, and they're just are not available. So these are the origami branded. They are a little bit different. We'll have to do a comparison one day and see like what are the difference, but you can kind of see there's this like texture to them, right? And Michael says, can you can use the cafe filters, the cafe filters, maybe? I presume so. I presume you can. I mean, like, you know me, I'll put any filter in these things. I'll buy the ones from the grocery store, the Melita #4s, and I'll just fold them over to make them fit. Like, I think those are perfectly fine. Like, I don't really know what the difference is between this and that. I don't even know I don't really don't understand the difference between these and like Sybaris, because they say Sybaris is faster. Why do I want to go faster? I want to control my foot. But you know, that's a whole nother video. That's a whole nother ranting. I haven't tried the origami, but I do like the Cafec a lot. Oh, okay, more than the Harios. Oh, okay, okay. What do you like about them? I'm curious to know, like, how does it affect the brew comparatively? Oh, also, Michael, you were asking yesterday about yesterday's coffee, the 60-hour anaerobic. I talked to Matt about it, and I think it is still available from the importer. I'm going to look into seeing about if we can get some, if how much she might have, or you know, things like that. If it's something that she's going to have for a while, I probably won't be able to buy it until we start opening this new cafe, because I got to have a means of like moving coffee before I can like buy and commit to bags of it, right? But I think it is still available, but I'll find out more in the coming days. All right, so let's go back to our. Oh, here it is. Michael says, I can't smell the paper as much as which I can taste. Oh. Huh. Is there smelling going on here? I have another filter here. Here's the generic Melita that I've been using. This particular brand is the Wegmans brand that I bought for the review a couple years ago. They're slightly different smell. I don't know if it's tremendous. It could be my hands as well. There's a uniquer, like maybe more of a woody, kind of woody, papery smell to this one than the other one. But I do like the texture. Oh, I mean, gotcha. You probably look at me like, what is this guy doing? He's smelling paper. What's wrong with him? Anyway, so let's look at so we got our texture here. We're going to take that. We're going to put this. We're just going to open it up. It has a nice texture to it. I got to say, I kind of like it. Kind of like it. Put it in there, right? I normally fold that, but this day I'm not really folding. I'm just kind of forcing it in there. I probably should have folded it. I'm going to use our little fellow, whatever you call this, cup. Nice and clean in there. Good. Then, oh gosh, I'm so used to this being like all one piece, not two pieces. All right, let's shake that out. Put that there. Tear the scale. Okay, we got that. Now we're going to brew. I've got the fellow kettle. Using this again because it's kind of handy. Like I've been able to hold it 212 for the last, half an hour. Michael says, Cafec is really nice and soft. I love paper, by the way. Sometimes buy extra nice paper just for fun, for when I take a visit. Regular paper. Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at these Japanese like writing pads at the pen show this past weekend. I was like, I forgot to buy one. They were like $17. And I was like, I should have bought one. But the one guy at the pen store that's in Rockville, he was like, well, you could buy those. They're like $30, but like, Rodea is just as good. And I was like, I've been trying the Rodea. So who knows? But I actually carry like a nice, like a drawing pad notebook for my actual like journaling notebook or recipes and development stuff. All right, let's get to brewing. We're going to take this and we're going to pour. Whoa, ouch. So some of the water's already coming through. We're at 35, 36 grams. We're not totally saturated all of the coffee. I was a little bit off on that one. There's a there's kind of a grassy, barny kind of smell. Barn, not Barney, but barn. Not the purple thing. There's a little bit of a divot here. I don't know what's going on with that, but we're going to see if we can crush that out. All right, so 44, 45 seconds, 100 grams. It's flowing fairly fast. I think probably should have like maybe have not gone 3 clicks from yesterday's adjustment. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. How's it doing? How's it doing? So if you're just joining us, this is the Fahem Ethiopia from Atnago, Limmu Seka, Ethiopia, from the producer by the name of Mohammed Lalo. This was roasted by Tim Wendelboe of Oslo, Norway, in August of 2019. This coffee is 3.5 years old. And if you're wondering, like, why are you doing this? What kind of craziness are you? Yeah, we're that kind of crazy. We have just keep coffee around because, well, basically, I have really too much coffee at the shops, and it's really bad. Like, I can't drink enough coffee, probably, ever. So what am I doing here? I'm just trying to keep the water level at the same, depth for most of the brew. We're at 2 minutes, 5 seconds, or we're a little bit behind. We should be about 200. I'm going to go a little bit forcefully on this. Not too forcefully. You're getting a lot of blonding already, so I'm going to kind of hold off and let that roll. What I don't want to do is raise it too high so that some of the coffee particulates are higher on the filter, so that as it drops, it comes out of the solution. We want to keep, I like to keep everything in solution so that we're always getting the constant extraction from the coffee. A lot of people will tell you all kinds of things. There's so many ways of doing it, so many different theories. I don't know if necessarily if anyone's really wrong. I'm right. At least I think I'm right. I don't know. I'm most of the. I think I'm 9 times out of 10. I'm wrong. Most of the time. So, and I do subscribe to the idea. Like many years ago when I was in Hawaii studying like hula and Hawaiian crafts and things like that, there's a saying in Hawaiian that basically in English translation says, "Not all knowledge resides in one house." Right. So it's good to like learn a particular path, but it's important to also remember that the other knowledge can come from outside as well. And so that's one thing that I always try to keep with me, and always encourage my staff and everybody that while we do things a certain way, oh, we're at 3:45, oh, we're kind of slow, we are really behind, we're really behind. Maybe I was wrong with the whole maybe we should have gone 5 clicks over from yesterday. We're gonna have a 5-minute brew, probably 6-minute brew here. I don't know how much. I think maybe part of this could be the fact that it is a lighter roast, so maybe we're getting more dust and more particulates, and I don't know how much the age will factor into this as well. There was part of me that was thinking maybe we should have done this as a cupping style of tasting, because that's fairly straightforward. 4 minutes 30 seconds, 279 grams. We are not getting any faster with the flow rate. As you may be able to see here, the what do you call it? It's just dripping. It's kind of, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Can you see the way it drips through there? Not terribly fast. And Michael says there's a Taiwanese YouTuber that has a particular way of doing pour overs. It would be really interesting to hear your comments on. I mean, it's like I'll have to look at it. If you have his name, let me know. I'll have a look at it. Um, I'm not really one to disparage other people's approaches to coffee because there's everybody has their ideas about what they like, and certainly one of the things to bear in mind as you're making your own coffee, like people like certain types of coffee, certain roast profiles, certain flavor profiles, and they tend to make recipes based on their personal preference, which is perfectly fine because it's a very coffee drinking is a very personal experience. Like if you're not enjoying the coffee you're drinking, why are you wasting your time on it, right? Like why do it, right? Like you know in my position, and many people have this position where they're overseeing a team of baristas and developing programs for shops. You have to have, I believe you have to have certain unified standards. Okay, 330, oh no, 331. You have to have certain unified standards so that everybody can be moving together at the same time. We can be making coffee in the same way so that it's very predictable and repeatable. And that's really what's important on the public facing level, is that that customer that comes in, and you think of yourself as a customer, right? You go to a place and you like what they're doing. You don't want it to change. Like, you don't want it to be like an unknown variable every time you walk in. Like, there's this one place that I go to, and they make French fries, double cut French fries, double fry. They do them really well. Like, but the last couple times I've gone, not as good. And it's a different cook that's working. It's like, okay, this is where standards really have to come in. You really have to be able to push it in a very consistent way, so that people like me, or customers like myself, don't get, you know, disenchanted with your product. So those are the things. Those are the things that I think about as an operator. So that's why we want at Spro, we want to have unified standards and a unified way of approaching coffee and pretty much everything that we do, so that it's repeatable over either by the staff, for the guests, and all that. Michael says, I wouldn't expect negative criticism, just more of your take on. Okay, good. I like his pour over method, just from experiential perspective, but not really sure how it affects the taste. Yeah, that's one thing. We don't really know how to taste. And one of the things to bear in mind is that as you're trying people's recipes, we're pretty much done now. We're 7 minutes, so it's way long time. But remember that while you may have this fellow ode, maybe you have the same one. Maybe it's also white. Maybe you bought it the same day that I did and use it the same amount of times. This, what number is that? This 5 and your 5 may be very different, right? You may not get the same results. I see a lot of guys on the forums where they talk about, what grinder are you using? I'm using I don't know, Commandante, whatever model Commandante, and I'm using the 3.5 or whatever the numbers may be. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And I get people are trying to compare that, but really it's really difficult to make that same comparison and get the same and consistent results, because you're using 2 totally different devices, and numbers on grinders are really just arbitrary and just as a kind of a reference point to help you, but they're not compatible across each other, right? So that's one thing just to keep in mind about that. All right, let's have a look at this. Oh, it's got a little bit of I can just smell a little bit of it. Let's have a look. There it is, Tim Wendelboe's 2019 roasted Fahem. I can only imagine Tim watching this. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? I hate you. Maybe that description, Michael, is really apropos. That poor kind of descriptive. There's definitely like a pungency, like that kind of like poorish, like mustiness. Some mustiness, definitely on the palate. Also rhubarb. There's that rhubarbish kind of thing. Not a sweet rhubarb like you'd find in rhubarb pie, strawberry rhubarb pie, but there's definitely kind of this vegetal rhubarby character. It's still very lightly roasted, a little bit bright on that respect. Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some mustiness to it, like a bagginess, like a baggy character. It is definitely not the same expression or expressiveness that it had in 2019. Tropical fruits, not really there. Florality, not really there. It's more herbaceousness, more. I would definitely categorize it as rhubarb, some musty, that poorish kind of mustiness. I mean, I would say that definitely 3.5 years is way too long to wait. In my estimations, from what I've read and what I've experienced, coffee. Let's say you have coffee and you roast it. Let's say you roast it January 1st. By January 7th, it's gone through its occlusion phase, the degassing, and you should be getting really good flavor profiles or whatever that flavor profile is. It should be coming through very clearly by that point. That will change and like continue to mature through a month out. And then maybe a month out, it's really got this nice dynamic flavor to it for a good month, maybe two. So maybe by April 1st, it's starting to change. But it might have changed. By April 1st, it will have changed from, April 7th. But I think pretty much from April 1st onward, it should it's changed as much as it's going to change, and will it will retain stable flavor conditions. I think I found it to be almost 2 years out. But once you get past 2 years, I think that's when it starts to like lose more of its luster. Like, and this is at 3.5 years. Yeah, not so great. Oh, aloha, Keone. How are you, man? Good to see you. How was Taiwan? It was good. I saw a post from yours on Instagram this morning. A lot of nice tattoos. A lot of people look like they're very excited. And Michael says, sounds like it would be good to dilute and add ice. Oh, I'll keep it around and give it a try. I don't have any ice on hand. Actually, the ice machine in my refrigerator has been broken for a long time, so I almost never have ice here at the house. I have to bring ice from the roastery when I had the roastery set up and I had the ice machine set up. I missed the ice machine. Actually, that was the one piece of equipment from the Hamden shop that I was like, I'm not selling that. I'm going to take that with me. And I have enjoyed like nonstop ice ever since. It's lovely. It's lovely. Here in America, we love ice. So, all right. So should you do it? No, definitely don't keep coffee for a long time. Use the coffee in a reasonable amount of time. If you're keeping it frozen, should not be a big deal for an indefinite period of time. But if you can't freeze it, you're going to leave it sitting out. Yeah, don't let it sit out too long. 3.5 years is way too long. It's not getting the peak performance. And if you paid the kind of money that you pay for Tim Wendelboe coffee, you're doing yourself a disservice because you spent great money for great coffee, but you didn't consume it in time. So don't let it go to waste. Drink your coffee within. So ideally, I should like try to maintain somewhat of the company line for the industry. Drink your coffee within 2 months. How about that? Probably 6 months is fine. And if you're freezing your coffee, a year is easily no problem. That's insider tips for you. If you ask me later, I will deny it. All right, so this coffee, rhubarb, pungency, a little bit of mustiness, some poor mustiness, vegetal, herbaceous, brightness from the light roasting, not too heavy on the body, like a very light medium kind of body. Not terrible. Like this is, I mean, it's not. I've had coffees that were a lot more disagreeable from many other places that were much fresher than this. So still quite, not bad. Not terrible. Not terrible. I can't say not bad, but not terrible. Tim, it's probably part of his magic, Keone says, I know I came in late, but have you tasted the really aged coffee? There was a good guy in Japan that had I think you might be talking about Ichiro Sekiguchi, who owned a place called Cafe del Hombre in Ginza, Tokyo. He's one of the guys that I'm a devotee of Master Sekiguchi. Unfortunately, Sekiguchi passed away in 2018, in March of 2018, just about a month and a half shy of his 105th birthday. And I have been a follower of his for many, many years. And basically, I walked in on March 18th 2018, and I said to his cousin, his nephew, Hayashi Fujihiko, I said, "Hey, how's the master?" The reply, "The master is dead." Good Lord. He died like 2 days before I arrived. He died on the 16th. And I was like, oh, so sad. But when I first started going to Lambre in 2007, he had coffees from like the 1960s, definitely 1970s. I think he had a Cuban from 64, definitely I think a Colombian from 76. And you know what? Like James Hoffman once said to some friends of mine that it was the best, worst coffee that he's ever had, like a great experience at Lambre, but he didn't like the coffee. And I think that those kind of coffees are things that are really interesting to experience and as a reference point. I don't know if necessarily if if you're someone that really likes these light, fruity, florally geishas, these coffees are definitely not like that. They're definitely heavier, a little bit musty. They're different because they're from a different era. Like if you're getting coffee from 1970s, 1980s, this is way before we started thinking seriously about processing. Like we only started thinking seriously about processing like in the early 2000s, maybe the late 1990s. So that's a big difference between those coffees. But because I was so blown away by what he was doing, and I talked to the team back then in 2007, like, how are they doing this? What are they doing? And they keep it in kind of this like temperature controlled warehouse. I think it's just more that's air conditioned, and they keep them wrapped in bags. At the time when they first started doing, when I got to know them, I think they were just keeping them in the burlap or just in tubs or something like that. But now they keep them and they have them packaged in these smaller bags. I've seen them, and they store them. And so one thing about Lambre, they have definitely changed their processes over the years and their approach to buying coffee as especially third wave coffee, as third wave changed and morphed into specialty coffee and really influenced the industry. They've made the changes with it. And I started doing it in 2007. So the first coffee that we started aging was a 2007 Idito Misty Valley. And basically we've kept that in plastic containers, food grade plastic containers, relatively stable conditions, in warehouses, covered, protected from light. And so this coffee, when it first came out in 2007 or it actually came out in 2008, because that's when we brought it in. Produced by Abdullah Bagersh. And this is before the ECX started and that whole mess. We'll go into that another day. But this was like beautiful, like apparent, natural processed coffee, but beautiful apparent blueberry fruit. Like it was just so like fruit bomby, clear blueberry. You're just like, oh, I love blueberry natural. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So I took some of that. I took a whole bag of it and put it away. And every year we'll bust out a little bit for Christmas time and sell it on the website. And every year it's changed. Like now from where it was in 2008, it was very fruit bomb, heavy, blueberry forward, like really ripe, apparent fruit. Now it's morphed into kind of this mellower, a little bit woodsy, more like of a flavor of a nicely aged Cabernet Sauvignon. Like it's really changed. It's very different coffee today than it was then. So that's kind of what happens. And that all depends on the coffee. Like some coffees just don't hold up to it. Like you can have coffees turn bad for a variety of reasons, right? The way it was processed, the way it was handled. So like you kind of have to take the roll of the dice with it. Like you kind of have to know or have an intuition about what will work. Yeah, so that was Ichiro Sakaguchi. There's a bunch of other people that are doing it, but Sakaguchi I think was the one that was really known for it, and he was the one that I felt like I go to Lambre every time I'm in Tokyo, and I'm it's the one place where I go as a customer, and I enjoy it as a customer, not necessarily an industry person. And I've gone there enough over the last 10 years that like not only do I know the staff, they know me, and like it's very much a very friendly, like you're kind of a regular thing. I'm really kind of like honored by that. Like it's my cafe in Japan. I'm like, that's where I go. Dan, what's going on, Dan? Good to see you. Perhaps if you wait 7 years, you'll have a really that could be. But I don't think that I definitely don't think like while we do age the green coffees, we don't age roasted. Like roasted should be consumed as fast as you can. Like, you're not, I don't know if you're going to get much, if you're aging it, right? But if you're freezing, you're not aging it. Freezing is just holding it at that position. But definitely, like I think that if you're buying coffee, use it now, enjoy it, and don't buy too much. Like I got too much. Like what am I going to do with all this coffee? I have no idea. It's like cigars. I got so many cigars. Will I be able to live long enough to smoke them all, or will I be caught up buying new stuff? That's the problem. Michael says, I love the freezing method. Get to buy extra coffee without the guilt and yeah, exactly. And then really, it will hold. I've tested it over like long periods of time, 6 months, year, and the ability for coffee to hold its position, its flavor position while frozen is like, you're like, whoa, that's awesome. That's awesome. And Kira says, great to hear perspective. Yeah, no problem, man. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys staying here and supporting the channel and watching the videos. All right, it's cooled down a little bit. Perhaps there's a little bit of florality coming out now that it's cooler. Perhaps. I will let it cool down a lot more until it's at room temperature. And then maybe, like you're saying, Michael, I'll add a little bit of water and some ice to it and just see how it performs. And then I'll report back tomorrow. All right, so, Michael says it's all, it's about the admiration of the collection. I love the smell of cigar. Oh, yeah, cigar room, so nice. So nice. So nice. Actually, speaking of which, I went to a dinner on Friday. I'll probably talk about this tomorrow and on the cigar and coffee and cigar show. But a friend of mine invited me over to dinner at their house in DC, and it's got this 1920s era house, 100 years old. And he's like, they smoke on the porch and they smoke in the backyard. And I get there, and he's like, you want to light up? And I was like, sure. I'm expecting to go outside. I'm dressed to go outside, right? And he's just like, all right. So we're in the living room, and they're lighting up in the living room. 4 of us lighting up in the living room. Like, what is going on, man? And he's like, he's got this old school fireplace. And he's like, well, the fireplace, when it's burning and everything is just set correctly, pulls the smoke out of the room. And we're talking about a living room that's open on 2 sides, to the dining room and kitchen, and then to the staircase and front door and upstairs. And gosh, I was surprised. It did work well. It did work well. There was a point when we closed all the doors where it didn't work as well, and some of the smoke from the fire was getting in there. And then I was like, I better go open the door. So I got up, and then I was like, oh, like suddenly I got up and I started walking to the door, and suddenly the world was starting to go like this. And I was like, oh, okay, this is carbon monoxide poisoning. So this is what it's like. Oh, man. Yeah, passive ventilation makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I would try that in my house, but it seemed to work. It seemed to work. All right. Well, I guess that's going to be it today. We're going to do a little bit more coffee tasting. Yeah, I want that more florally. I want more of that flavor. This is a little bit thinner. Sorry, Tim. Sorry it took for me so long to drink it. Still, check out Tim's coffee. I got a link down in the description below to his website. Really great stuff. Nice coffee. It's like really beautiful stuff. Especially if you want to try Nordic style coffee. Tim is the one to check out for Nordic. Everybody else that's doing it in America, forget them. Go to the source, right? Go to the source. All right. That's going to be it for today. Mom, thank you very much. Michael, killing it. Good to see you. Dan, always good to have you. If you're watching the replay, you got any questions, talk to me in the comments below. Love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for future videos, questions you have that want answered, drop them in the comments below. All right. Until next time, hope you have a great one, and see you then.